Okay. Hello, everyone, to those who are joining us. Thank you for being so on time. Just going to give it a few minutes. So for those who are here, welcome. And let me know where you guys are from and who you are. You can use the chat function at the bottom of your screen to tell me, you know, who you are, where you're dialing in from. I know we're expecting quite a global audience. So okay, we've got Ashwin from Auckland, Ramneek from Sydney. Got Harsharan from Auckland, Aisha from Sydney, got Harpreet from the Gold Coast, got Nikita from Sydney, Milda from the UK, Jano from Sydney. Oh, this is awesome. We've got a real Natasha from Sydney. We've got a real global audience. This is very, very exciting, guys. Deep from Switzerland. Oh, oh welcome. Oh, this is so exciting. Okay, guys, to those who are just joining us, let me know where you're from. You can put it in the chat function, and we're just getting a bit of a feel. Harjinder from New Delhi, getting a bit of a feel for where everyone's from. Rahul from India. Oh, awesome. Just give it a few minutes before everyone joins. Okay. If you have just joined, just let me know where you are dialing in from. You can use the chat function at the bottom of your screen, and we'll get started in just a couple of minutes. Okay. We've got Churjeev from Auckland, Manisha from Brisbane. Okay, Arvind from Melbourne, all over Australia. Awesome. Welcome, guys. Okay, we might just get started because there's a lot to chat about, and I know you guys are all here to listen to Meeno's story. So we'll get to Kuldeep from Sydney. Welcome. So we'll get to Meeno and his story in a few minutes. So so we will just get started. We are expecting a few more people, but we'll get started. So welcome to this webinar on raising the bar diversity in the legal profession with Meeno Chawla. My name is Hasveen. I am a law graduate here in Sydney, Australia, and I'm also the lead for the Sydney chapter of the Young Sikh Professionals Network. For those who don't know who we are, who the Young Sikh Professional Network is, we are an organisation based here in Australia and New Zealand, and we are here to provide you with the mentors, the networks, the skills, the resources that you really need to excel in your career. So if you do want to learn more about us or get involved, definitely check out our website, www.yspn.org.au. Or you can follow us on our social channels, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We keep those updated, so definitely check us out there. So before going any further, I would just like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which I'm speaking, the Bidjigal people of the Darug Nation. I pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. And I acknowledge that the laws and policies of Australia have continuously disadvantaged the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, which has led to the severe overrepresentation of the community in our justice system. So I hope to use platforms like this to speak about and to help address those issues. So I'll just cover off a few housekeeping matters before we do get underway. So there is a chat function. So again, if you are just dialing in now, let us know where you're from, and you can continue to use that function during the duration of the session. There is also a question function at the bottom of your screens. If you do have any questions for Meeno during the session, pop them there and we will address all the questions towards the end. So as to the agenda, there will be a 40-minute structured Q&A between Meeno and I discussing the topics that you're here for. So diversity, motivations to join the profession and Meeno's story. And the last 20 minutes will be an opportunity for you to ask any questions that you might have. This session is being recorded, so if you do want to revisit it at any time, you can do so. We will send you the link. And if you want to share it, you can also do so. So with that all said, I want to introduce our guest, Meeno Chawla, who is here in front of us, and we're very grateful to have you as our first international guest as part of our webinar series. So Meeno came to the UK as a refugee from Afghanistan in 1995. Since then, she has completed a law degree and has been called to the bar as the first Afghan Sikh of England and Wales. So Meeno, welcome and good morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi everyone. Thank you,
I've just scratched the surface of your story there, so we might use that as a base to start. So do you want to tell us a little bit about your journey and take us right back to where you were born, where you grew up, and everything in between to get where you are today?
I will do my best. I mean, I was thinking about this last night, 26 years of my life in an hour. That's not going to be easy. Hi everyone, my name's Meeno Chawla. I was born in Afghanistan, Kabul. I came to the UK as a refugee in 1995. I grew up in a small town called Southall in West London, if any of you know this. I went to a state school and I never knew what a barrister was. I didn't really know much about the legal profession. I didn't come from a background where my parents were professionals. I then went on to go and do my own research. I did work experience in different places. And then I went to the University of Portsmouth. I studied law with criminology and I quite enjoyed it, even though it was quite tough. And once I graduated, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I went and worked in the charity sector, did some work with Ealing Equality Council, which deals with housing and debt claims. And then I got a job at Slater and Gordon Lawyers, where I was working as a personal injury legal assistant. Didn't enjoy that. And then I went on to join the Crown Prosecution Service as a paralegal, and I'm based at court. So I'm involved in a number of cases involving, they could be range from theft to murder, so a variety of cases. And I studied the bar course part-time. One of the reasons I studied part-time was because I couldn't afford to do it full-time. It was just too expensive. It was £19,000, and that doesn't include any travel or food costs or anything. It just includes just the fees of the course. And then once I did it part-time, I got called to the bar in 2019, last year. It was the best day of my life because I didn't have to revisit those horrible exams. And then I decided to continue working at the CPS, and now I'm here. I do not have a pupillage, but I am currently looking, but at the same time exploring new options, because for me, it's about gaining that experience and understanding and progressing my skills.
Yeah, definitely. And you've had so much varied experience, and I think all those places that you've worked have really helped to kind of give you a sense of an idea of what you kind of want to go into in the future. And so a lot of us, I guess, are intrigued into your background as being an Afghan Sikh, and certainly here in Australia, we don't hear too much about the Afghan Sikh community because there really isn't much of a community here. And what we do here is what we base our understanding on what comes out through the news and through the media of news of hate crimes and oppression. So Could you tell us a little bit about what your family's experience was like in Afghanistan, and give us an insight into, you know, was that their experience as well?
So I'm going to talk on behalf of just my family's experience. I believe a lot of Afghan Sikhs will share the same experience. In the year of 1995, when I left, well, when my parents left, things were quite bad. That time, the Taliban government was ruling the country, and things had gotten so bad that people had to leave. They didn't have work, they didn't have educational opportunities. You know, we were a religious minority. Everyone was being told to convert to Islam. And I think my parents' experience of that made them realize that they can't live there. And a lot of Afghan Sikhs decided to move. They decided to risk their lives and move out of the country. You know, prior to that, prior to 1989, I think when my parents got married in 84, they sort of said it wasn't as bad. Things were still flourishing. You know, my dad used to be in the army. He had a fabric business. My granddad was very well known there. They had a good life, and that was their home. They've been there since the 15th century. We are Afghan. We have true Afghan blood, but we were never seen like that through the government. And it broke my parents' heart that they had to leave everything and come to a new country and find their new way here. And I think a lot of people, I think with Afghan Sikhs, because we're a religious minority, not many people know about us. And it's time to speak out. It's time to tell the world exactly what happened to us back there, and, you know, why we're here today and what we're trying to achieve. And because we're such a small community, I think we're often forgotten. And this is one of the biggest problems. And I'm sure a lot of people would know about Dr. Anarkali Kaur, who is also fighting for women's rights in Afghanistan still. She still remains there, and she's still a very prominent member. And that's what we need. We need to fight back, and we need to remember that that is our home as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And for those who don't know, you know, Sikhs have been in Afghanistan from the birth of the religion over 500 years ago, when the, you know, founding father of the religion, Guru Nanak, spread the message of Sikhism across the continent. And so there's such a rich heritage, as you said, and such a rich lineage there, and culture, and it's a real, you know, tragedy that the fact that, you know, the community there has now had to be so uprooted. But it's also very, very uplifting that you are using that experience and, you know, the stories from what you've heard, to you know, pursue such a purposeful career and to advocate for those who are vulnerable in the community. And so you've written about your story in a couple of law journals and legal blogs, and we'll touch on that in a second about storytelling. But you've written about how the stereotype of women needing to be a homemaker, and be a dependent in the family, were reinforced during your childhood, and you know, despite moving to the UK, those attitudes were reinforced. So how did those attitudes and voices around you have an effect on your decision to pursue such a bold and ambitious career?
That's quite an interesting question. So I think people have read from my story also that I come from a background of girls. My parents didn't have any boys. I've got 3 sisters. We're 4 girls all together. We've all got different personalities, if I'd like to say. And I think the fact that we had people around us who were homemakers, and some of them were not by choice, and for us it was never that option. My mum, from a very young age, I mean, when I say young age, when her kids were still quite young, I was, I think, 3 or 4 years old, she started working as a cleaner. And that wasn't normal, because in the Afghan Sikh community, particularly back in Afghanistan, the women wouldn't work. They would be homemakers, and that is what was reinforced in their childhood. So I think even if my mum had the option of education, she didn't really know what to do, because she saw all her, like her grandparents, her mum working, her sisters, you know, all her relatives, they were all doing the same thing. And when she got to this country and she started working, that sort of made me realize, if my mum's doing it, why can't I do it? And you know, another person I'd like to talk about, actually two people, is my mum's mum, my nanny, who was she was a helper in the Gurudwara, and she went out and she, although it wasn't a paid job, she did offer service, but she still came home and managed. And I think that's where my mum realized you can go out, you can still work, and you know, you can still handle a home. You don't have to be a homemaker, you can do different things out there. And my granddad, who has now passed away, he had dementia, but when he was a strong, fit man, he was always someone, you know, who pushed us to be who we are. And he never told us that you're a girl, you couldn't do this. Although other members of the community would say, you know, you guys are girls, your dad's got 4 girls, a lot of burden on him. We never allowed that. My mum was the strong point for me. My dad never stopped me from pursuing a career. In fact, they encouraged me. And you know, mum always taught us, go and be independent. You don't have to follow a pathway that you don't want. You have to do what's right for you. And that's what we did.
Yeah. And how about members of the broader Afghan Sikh community? Did they were they encouraging of your you know, your career, well, more recently, and going to the bar, or were their attitudes a bit more conservative?
I didn't really share a lot of what I was doing with many people, but I think when I did speak to certain members of the community, it was more so I got questioned as to why would I go into such a unstable career route, because everybody knows the bar is not stable. We are self-employed, and we are in a background where the work is so varied, you just don't know what's happening next and you can't plan. I think for me, that was something I loved. I love the fact that it's challenging, it's varied, and you know, every day is a new adventure. And what more do you want from life?
Yeah, exactly right. And it's about I guess redefining what a successful career looks like for the, you know, the broader community, and kind of really bringing them along the journey and showing them that, well, you know, this is also possible. And you know, this journey as a barrister can also be, you know, stable, and you know, you can also be successful in that way as well. So as I mentioned, you have written about your journey in a couple of legal blogs, and storytelling is a really important thing, and really powerful tool that we can use, but it often goes overlooked because a lot of people don't think that they do have a story to tell. So what made you tell your story, and how has that affected you in your professional journey so far?
I'm going to be giving out a shout out to somebody. I had a mentor, so I did mini pupillage, which is work experience with a barrister, and I was sitting outside court, and Jeremy Dean, Queen's Counsel, who's currently head of chambers, joint head of chambers at 25 Bedford Row, he approached me and he sort of spoke to me, and we just had a good chat because he was in the case that I was watching, and he said to me, you know, contact me if you want any help. So I did. And I remember just having a chat with him just about myself and my background and my parents, and he was just so impressed. And he just published an article in the Youth Law Journal, and he said to me, why don't we contact the editors and see if your story is going to be published? And I sort of looked at him and thought, my story? Are you serious? I don't have a story. He said, no, you do have a story. And so we did, and the editor really liked it, and I was so surprised at how well it was taken, because I received a lot of different comments from particularly young girls who said, wow, like, this is out there, we can do this, and their struggles and what they face, and particularly that cultural pressure. You know, not everybody has the opportunity to do this, and I'm so grateful that I am able to pursue this career and encourage more people. And I think after that, you know, I was just before I was being called, I spoke to my inn, and one of the people from there, the education secretary, she said to me, why don't you publish your article in the Middle Templar magazine? And the theme was women in law. It was being published alongside fantastic judges, barristers, advocates, different sorts of people. And my reaction was, wow, I'm being published alongside these people. Are you serious? Because I didn't know I had a story. And I think this is the other thing with storytelling, it's so powerful. You don't know you have a story until you vote, you know, you actually voice it and you tell people that, oh, this is what my background is. And I would, hopefully out of this webinar, hope that more people would share their stories with me as well. I hope I can create that platform and push them up and say to them, you know, go out there and do this, because more and more people need that. You know, your story is someone else's guide. And I found I didn't know that until many people messaged me and said, oh, actually we've suffered, you know, from similar experiences.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And as you said, it's such a powerful tool, and your story travels so far, even to, you know, here in Australia. And, you know, the fact that we know about you is really goes to show how powerful a tool it is to inspire so many people. So yeah, no, thank you for sharing your story. I mean, it's definitely you know, important and something that we all can learn from. So I guess we've covered a little bit about your background, and we will now turn to your motivations to join the profession and why you joined law. So the legal industry, I myself I'm in the legal industry, and I know it's made up of very A-type personalities. You know, it's a very competitive environment. It's a very long journey to get to the end, and especially when you decide to take the bar exams and become a barrister and on that route. So what drew you so strongly to the legal profession and not any other professions where you could give back?
I had many different reasons, and I think it was mostly because of my setbacks. So when I was young, I always, you know, wanted to be on an equal level as my male cousins. I always wanted it, you know, if they were like, oh, we want to do something, I was like, no, I want to do the same. I wanted to help people in a way where I'm voicing for someone. And to be honest, I used to think I wanted to be a police officer. I used to think I wanted to be a member of parliament. I had dreams of everything. I used to think I wanted to be a lot of different things, a journalist. But I think the bar was something I never thought about until very late, mainly because when I was in high school and I had a careers meeting with my tutor, they sort of looked at me and said, you're not clever enough to be at the bar. You do know there are so many different people out there with different personalities and people who are very highly educated. You know, your grades don't reflect that. And that really set me back. That made me think, wow. And then I ended up doing my year 10, because everyone in year 10 ends up doing work experience somewhere. I ended up doing it in a hotel. I didn't enjoy it. And I said to myself, that's it. During my summer holidays, I just wrote to so many different law firms, whether I got a response or not. And I went and did work experience during my summer holidays in 2 different law firms just to get a feel of law. And that really pushed me. And then, you know, sort of working towards it at university, actually, I didn't apply for law straight away. I applied for criminology with sociology. And what happened was last minute, I decided, I said, oh, I really want to change my course. So I contacted Portsmouth, which was the only university that picked up my call. And they said, yes, you can change your course to law. And I just accepted it, mostly out of fear that I will miss out on the chance to study, because I was just very not confident about who I was, my grades. I never thought I would make it. And then when I got to university, I was part of the Innocence Project, and I chose not to do a dissertation. I chose to focus on this project. And I was involved with working on a real case, which was a potential miscarriage of justice. And I was case manager on the case. I was going to prison. I was speaking to my client. For me, that was a turning point, that this man needs a voice. Who can be that voice? And the barrister is the voice. I chose this profession because of that. But moving on, it's obviously highly competitive. It's, you know, when you look at the profiles of different people, I always used to think, I don't fit this profile. I'm not from that background. I'm not going to do it. But that didn't necessarily stop me from pursuing this.
Yeah. Oh wow. Yeah. And sometimes it does take just that one case or that one conversation to completely, you know, change the way that you see where your life is going. So, and one other incident that you've written about is that you were a victim of crime yourself. So, can you talk a little bit about that and how that had an impact on your journey to choose law?
It was extremely scary. I was in my final year, just I think 3 days before my human rights exam, an exam I was kind of looking forward to. I mean, I know not a lot of people say that, but I really liked that subject. It was late at night, and I actually lived in a flat, so I thought I was quite safe. Me and my housemate were just studying. Somebody knocked on our door, not realizing we thought it was one of our neighbors, because we were students, not so aware of who lives around us. we opened the door and it was this really buff man, you know, really big, and he just pushed the door open and he said, "I'm going to kill you both." And we looked at each other like, what have we done? Who are you? And he said, you know, he was drunk and he said, "I'm going to slit your throat." He held us hostage for 15 minutes. It was a very scary experience. When he turned around, we ran downstairs, contacted the police, and straight away he was arrested. He'd messed up the whole flat, but mentally left me traumatized. And I think the turning point for me was the fact that I had to defer my exams until I still graduated, but I still had to do exams after. And it was quite sad. It really demotivated me on a lot of different aspects. I really didn't think I was going to finish these exams. But I ended up graduating with 69.2, which was just off a first. And to be honest, after everything I'd gone through, I didn't even expect that. So I was very grateful that I was able to finish them successfully.
Oh, wow. Thank you for sharing that. That's extremely traumatic, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure that was a really traumatic experience. So I guess you've had so many experiences along the years that have really pushed you into social justice. But did at any point in time you think you wanted to pursue a career in commercial law or private law, or were you very fixated on the public law space?
I think for me, it was always the fact that I did do a bit of commercial law at university, and it just never stood with me. I always enjoyed doing work on criminal justice, social justice, human rights, you know, mainly because when I was studying human rights, it always reminded me of where I'd come from, the sort of experiences my parents had, you know, the trauma they went through. And I'm speaking for a lot of Afghan Sikhs, because if you talk to different people, they've all been through different trauma. Everyone had different experiences depending on the part of Afghanistan they were living in. And I know that when I look back, I always thought I wanted to help people, and how can I help people, particularly those who are vulnerable, where their liberty is at stake. And being able to do projects like the Innocence Project really pushed me. It just made me realize, no, this is what I want to do. I want to be that voice for those vulnerable people. Commercial law was interesting, and I don't think I've explored it enough. Who knows what's going to happen in the future? But I think for now, this is just something I want to pursue, and I've always been passionate about it.
Yeah, definitely. And passion is what counts, and passion is what carries you through your career. So, yeah, definitely. So I guess we've talked a little bit about your background and your motivation to join the profession. So now let's chat about the profession itself, and more specifically diversity within the profession, which is the topic of the webinar. So, you know, we know diversity is important, and everyone is on this call, on this webinar, because, you know, they care about the issue of diversity. But could you talk a little bit about why diversity in the legal profession is so integral and so necessary?
Well, in my opinion, and I think the way I see it is, the bar and the legal profession represents all members of the public. It represents everyone. How are we not accessible? How can we have a profession which represents only one type of group or one voice? And I think, in my opinion, this is something which needs to change. It's really important that we do look like the people we represent. We need to have a diverse workforce where we've got different people of different talents, different experiences, and it's important. And I've seen this through my work at court. Working with some people who come from different backgrounds, they don't always feel like they're being heard, not because you have to have the same experiences, but because when you have that diverse workforce, you sort of feel, you know, I'm being understood. People do get what I've been through. Maybe they might not get it completely, but they have an understanding. But if you have one view, that's not really going to work in this profession, particularly when you are the ones representing everybody.
Yeah, definitely. I think it helps to build that credibility and confidence in the system as well. And, you know, as you said, you especially when you're at the bar, you need to reflect the society that that you serve. And when people come to access the law, they need to know that there's someone there that you know, has their shared experience, or has you know, has their shared values. And yeah, that's exactly right. And so you've had a breadth of experience working with judges, with barristers, and in firms. And so, what do you see around you in terms of diversity? Do you see a diverse profession, or do you think there's a long way to go?
I'm speaking on just what I've seen. I mean, other members of the bar may see differently, but for me, I think there needs to still be a lot of improvement. Let's say I've seen 8 barristers at court or 10 barristers at court, 8 of them will be white male, privately educated. And that's just because the bar was always run that way. But things are changing, and that's the most amazing thing. It's become so much more accessible. And the fact that people like me can enter the profession now, and I've had this opportunity to work with so many different people, it's just about a helping hand, you know, pushing people up and saying, this is what you can do as well. It is still predominantly white male, but things are really changing, and that's the best part about all of this.
Yeah, definitely. And just in preparation for this webinar, I dug into a little bit of the statistics, and I think it's quite important to look at them to just really illustrate what the state of affairs is. And in the UK, 7% of judges are from a BAME background, so Black, Asian, minority, ethnic background, and that's compared to 15% of the population. So, you know, it's quite clear that there's a long way to go in terms of the judiciary. 13% of the barristers in the UK are from a BAME background, which is quite, it does show that there's been significant progress there. But again, there's still a long way to go. And I guess one thing that one of the statistics that I came across was that only of those 13%, only 8% stay on to become QC. So there's a retention kind of issue there. But unfortunately, Australia is lagging significantly behind in terms of diversity. And in Australia, only 1.6% of barristers are from an Asian background. And obviously that's Asian and BAME, that we're not comparing apples with apples, but it shows that there's a lot of work to be done. In Australia, 0.8% of the judiciary are from an Asian descent. So less than 1% are from an Asian descent. And you compare that to 13% of the population being from an Asian background. And I guess most problematically, and what the most troubling statistic out of all is the fact that 0.7% of legal practitioners in Australia are from an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander background. And that's really troubling because, you know, the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community here in Australia is the most over-policed community. And so when they are confronted with a legal profession where no one has any shared experience or, you know, understands their values and perspectives, it really goes to show that, you know, justice, there's a long way to go in terms of justice, and it's not working as well as it could be. So I think those illustrations, the statistics just help to illustrate what the state of affairs is. And so we've seen a lot of progress in terms of gender diversity. Obviously not enough. I think about 25% of the partners at law firms here in Australia are female, and that's nowhere near enough, but we've seen progress there. But we're still lagging in the cultural diversity. And so why do you think that it takes a little while longer, and why do you think that the cultural diversity campaign is lagging behind gender diversity?
I think, just through an opinion, for me anyway, I think cultural diversity is quite tough to pursue, bearing in mind how tough it is to get to the bar. The legal profession isn't cheap. It's not a degree where you go and do your first 3 years and then that's it. You have to go on and do a professional course. And a lot of people may think, you know, I don't want to go out and spend 4 or 5 years of my career to try and pursue this. Bearing in mind, there are not many jobs, particularly in the bar. Like, it's quite tough to get a pupillage. So maybe it could be that problem. I mean, for me, it certainly was. I didn't want to go to the bar straight away. I wanted to go and earn and build my experience, and then also pave my own course. It's a very tough profession, and I think culturally as well, people would think, why would I go and spend this many years, after having a degree from a different background, where you can go and get into a graduate scheme and you sort of work your way up in the profession, etc. But I feel that, for the bar anyway, it's not very easy to gain access. But this is why now things are really changing. More and more people are seeing what it's about. It's becoming more accessible. And I think in the next coming years, things will definitely change. They're not as bad as they were, let's say, 15 years ago. So they will change. Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. And it's about having role models, and the importance of role models and people like you and people sharing their story, to see what the possibilities are of pursuing a career in the legal profession. And as you mentioned, it's a much tougher issue. It goes to issues of unconscious biases and things sitting, ideas of what leadership should look like, of what a lawyer should look like. And so, as you said, it's really about, showcasing who we do have in the community and really encouraging them to go forward. And so in terms of, I guess, strategies to address diversity, there's a few ways of looking at it. I guess there's a part that the community can play, and as you've alluded to, there's a part, we need to facilitate that. We need to encourage people to pursue their career in the legal profession, but there's also a part that employers should be playing in this. So what have you seen to work in terms of strategies to advance this campaign for diversity, both from the community sense and from the employer side of things?
A lot has happened over the last couple of months. The whole Black Lives movement has really taken a turn. I think I've seen a lot more mini pupilages, which is work experience with barristers, accessible to underrepresented groups. I attended a webinar recently where they did it solely for BME people, for people who are underrepresented in the communities. And I think that really encourages applicants that they are also being heard, they're also being considered. The fact that they've been given a chance to attend these webinars, which are solely for them, just helps people understand that the profession is becoming more accessible. Another thing is mentorship. I mean, I've taken on a mentorship where I have a mentor who's from a BME background. She's helped me with my application, she's helped me with my interviews, she's helped me with a lot of different things. And I think this helps because then that you've got someone to fall back on and, to get help. And for me, that's a very big thing. Another thing is having more online courses. Because of the pandemic, I've seen the judiciary recently have an online course where they've told people about the profession, where they've told them what the judges do, what they do in their chambers, because these are things that are behind the scenes that you would not see in public. So, really educating people and telling people what's out there. And I think this is really important, because this will change the profession, it will make it more accessible. Now, more and more people are going to enter because they're going to see there are things out there for me. It's not just one class of people that are being represented, one group of people. So that is what I would like to see more of. And, things like this, the community can, like, for example, the local Gurdwara where we all visit, sometimes they hold like workshops where they're for doctors, for lawyers, and they give out free advice, because it shows that there are, for example, I'm talking from a Sikh faith, they show that there are Sikh doctors, Sikh barristers, Sikh solicitors out there. It just makes it more accessible. Then you can network there as well. And if people want to join, they can ask questions about it. These are all important things to help bring up diversity in the profession, and also show it's becoming so much more accessible.
Yeah, definitely. And that's what we're trying to promote here at YSPN. I mean, we create a network, and we have mentorship programs, and we have platforms and discussions like this to do exactly that, to to carry the conversation forward and to educate people. And so I mean, I guess it's one thing to educate people, who want to be educated, but how do we convince people who, are not from a, I guess, a ethnically diverse or, who are from a minority background? How do we get them to become our allies in this campaign? Because sometimes you think you're, talking into an echo chamber, and the message isn't going beyond the people that it's affecting. So how do we get other people to become our allies and to make it a widespread campaign?
That's quite a tough question, because I think I'm still at the very junior end, but the way I've been doing it is I work with a number of different barristers who come from different experiences. I talk to them about myself, I tell them about who Afghan Sikhs are, and I send them my article. And I think for me, it's more so then they start to realize that there is different types of people in the profession, and to help them become your allies, it's about educating them, and educating them not in the sense that you have to know this. It's more so just telling them who you are, really pushing yourself out there. The only way people will become your allies is if you talk about things, if you're vocal about it. They won't know who you are until you don't discuss. We can't complain about diversity if we are the ones pushing ourselves back from the profession. And I think that's a very important point, because fear is a big thing. A lot of people say, oh, it's so tough to get to the bar, I'm not going to do it, it's too expensive. If you're passionate about something, go for it. Go out there and do it, because that is what will increase diversity, and that is what will, help the profession realize that there are more people out there that are interested. It needs to be more accessible.
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of career progression is bound up in that confidence. So we need to, build that confidence, whether it is, within our community, showcasing our people, or, whether it is our employers really facilitating that. So it is the last 20 minutes. So we are in the Q&A section, and we'll get started on some of the questions that you do have. If you do want to if you do want to ask any questions, leave them in the question and answer section at the bottom, and we can go through some of those. So we've got a couple of questions here. So firstly, what community service project do you believe allowed you to make the greatest impact, and how?
I was involved in a Afghan Sikh project to do with women. I did this in around, I think, 2017, 2018. I went and spoke to members of the community who were women, only women. And it's because I feel that they are not heard enough. This Afghan Sikh project I spoke about the profession, I spoke about, gender roles in the community and how we can empower other women in this community to pursue their careers. It doesn't have to be law, it could be highly competitive careers. And I think that made a huge impact on me as well. It made me realize that what I'm trying to achieve, it just helped me realize the end goal I'm trying to achieve. And the fact that, we need to be heard. We're in a profession where I didn't have any role models. I mean, I had an uncle and aunt who were solicitors, but there was only so much information they can give. And when you're vocal about these things, people will come out and they will start sharing their stories as well.
Yeah. Okay, we've got a few questions, so okay, so the next question from Rahul Kumar is, what is the most difficult / rewarding thing you've ever accomplished?
So to anyone who's listening from the UK and who's done the bar, everybody who knows the bar course was the toughest time. I did it part-time. I was funding through my own pocket, and I did get a mini scholarship, but they didn't cover all my costs. That for me was, one of my biggest accomplishments. It was the toughest thing ever. I used to come home every single day and just tell my parents, I quit. I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry, guys, I quit. And I felt under a little bit more pressure, because I thought if I pass these exams, I'll be the first Afghan Sikh to be called to the bar. And for me, that was one of the toughest things I think I ever did. And I look back and I put my books away. I'm never going to take them out again. Hopefully not yet until I start practicing. But that was one of the toughest but greatest achievements. That smile on my parents' face or my sister's face when I got called to the bar was just priceless. And you look back on the achievement and you think all that hard work was worth it. But it's also tough. There's a lot of work involved, and it's just about perseverance, hard work, and you need to be passionate about this as well.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, as I've mentioned to you, people here in Australia, I mean, people don't even think about, you know, going to the bar or becoming a barrister just because of the ideas of, you know, what people have heard about how hard the exams are and how grueling a process it is. So it's definitely a very, very big achievement. Um, from Karan Anand, is there anything you think we can do from Australian and other Western countries to better the conditions for Sikhs in Afghanistan?
I think in terms of Sikhs in Afghanistan, it's sort of providing them with support. There's a lot of charity work involved. So, like, for example, the work I did with City Sikhs, we provided them with funding so they could, you know, move out the country and they could be offered refuge in different places. It's very hard to say what's required and what's not, because I'm not directly involved with what the community out there is doing. But I think one of the things I would suggest that people in Australia do is get in touch with different organizations like United Sikhs who may be assisting Afghan Sikhs and ask them what you can offer. I mean, for me, it was, when I saw the incident, it was that they need to get out. How can they get out if they don't have the money? So funding was one of the biggest things that I wanted to offer. You know, and I worked with Jasvir Singh, who's City Sikh's chair, and we wrote to the foreign secretary, and we also put together some money, which hopefully assisted them enough to be able to get some people out of the country and move to a safer place. So I think that's what I would suggest. But if you keep in touch with me, I can find out exactly what else you can do, and then, you know, I can probably offer some guidance.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so a few more questions. So from Ramneek, it sounds like you have received several messages of relating to your aspiration, that your aspiration was inappropriate. As mentioned, the career counselor and teacher who you know said that, you know, you're not capable of becoming a lawyer, the role of women in culture. What kinds of lessons can we as YSPN and for young women learn from your experience about what gave you resilience and how you found a purpose larger than yourself and to achieve things that you don't think are possible?
Wow, very good question. In terms of resilience, don't give up. If this is something you really want, go for it. Don't look left, right, and center. And I think what a lot of people do is you get so involved with what other people are saying. I had my mum as an example, my sisters, you know, one of my sisters, she's an aerospace engineer in Switzerland, and she's in a male dominated industry. She could have left everything and said, I'm coming back because I don't fit in, but she pushed herself. So seeing people like that really helped me as well. And I think as a society now, you know, we should be empowering our women. We should be telling them, go for it. Don't think, you know, so much about where your gender is. Don't think so much about what your background is. Just go for it. Do your research. I did a lot of research. I went and did work experience in so many different places. You know, I was a student. I was out of pocket begging my parents for, you know, money, you know, to help me travel to different places. But I did it because I knew I wanted to do this. And, you know, holding events like this, I think more and more young people, women, will hopefully look at this event and read my article and think, you know, if she can do it, we can do it. And that's the power of storytelling. I read many stories when I was a kid, and I used to think, oh, I want to be like that person. I want to go and pursue this career. It's not easy, and hard work and resilience. And we have Afghan blood, we have warrior blood. We're not people who give up. We will pursue this. We will keep fighting. And this is a profession where you're a voice for people. And if I couldn't stand up for myself and gave up on my careers, how am I voicing for other people? So it was that mentality that pushed me forward.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so a few more questions. If you do have any questions, definitely pop them in the question and answer section, and we'll address them. What has the UK experience showed in improving diversity and inclusion that Australia can learn from based on the contrast in the outcomes?
I'm not too sure about what Australia offers right now, but I think in terms of diversity, if they hold more events, if they offer more access to the profession, you know, going to high schools, universities, speaking to people, because when you're talking to them at an age like high school, you know, where they're still considering, if they see some form of prospect, then maybe that will push people towards the profession. And I think these sorts of events are quite important. People just need to go out there and have that opportunity, that platform to learn, that platform to go and experience. Like, work experience is so important. If more work experience opportunities are open in Australia, maybe more people will consider the profession. You know, this is a big thing. You know whether you want to do this or you don't.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, just from my own observations, there isn't many avenues and forums to speak about, you know, diversity in the profession. There is the one odd organization setting up an event, or, you know, a discussion here and there, but it needs to be a consistent effort over time, and that's, I guess, the only way we're going to make progress in here, in this space. And so what has been the greatest challenge you've faced during your volunteer efforts, and how did you overcome such a challenge?
One of the greatest challenges have been, so I was fresh out of law school. So when I finished my law degree, I went into charity work, and for me it was challenging because I'd never really worked with clients other than prisoners before. And when I was involved with working with domestic violence witnesses, victims, and people who were going through housing problems, I was scared. I mentally was stressed. I used to come home every night and think, how can I help these people? And it's mentally challenging because you are the person who's involved in the case, and you think you want to help people, but helping comes in different ways. I think sometimes just being there for them. And I didn't realize that I was fresh out of law school. I didn't really know how to handle a law firm. I didn't really know how to handle a charity. I just had no experience of any of these things. But I think you slowly start to learn how things are going. You slowly start to learn how to handle different sorts of people, and just be there, listen to them. And I think this is one of the biggest things about the profession, listening to people. If you want to be a voice for someone, you need to listen to them, and they need to feel like they're being heard. So a big challenge, but one that you achieve over time. And this is why work experience is so important, working with different types of people, understanding different backgrounds and things.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. So Meeno, you talked about the importance of storytelling and how you initially didn't think you had a story to tell. What gave you the courage to overcome this and tell your story so publicly for the first time?
It was very scary. I didn't know it was going to be received so well. It was my mentor, Jeremy Dean, Queen's Counsel, who I did legal assistant work with. He was the one who said, you do have a story, just go for it. And I think the fact that when I started to write it, it actually felt quite good. You know, I was talking to my parents more about Afghanistan, and I was trying to understand, because I was so young, I didn't really know what had happened. But when you hear the stories about what had happened and writing that story, it felt so powerful. It actually felt like, wow, I do have a story. And for me, that was the turning point. When I published it and I saw it on paper and I sent it to, let's say, just family and friends, they were all like, wow, when did you write this? And where did this come from? And I said, I don't really know. I didn't know I had a story. But that's the beauty of it. You know, a lot of people who go through struggles always think, oh, my struggles are so small, or my struggles are not big enough, they're not worthy of saying. It's not true. You know, tell your story how it is. Every setback that you've had is something that's, you know, going to push you forward for something big. Talk about it, tell people, because, you know, you don't know, your story could help another person. And I didn't realize that until I started getting a flux of messages saying, we've been through the same struggle, I've experienced very similar things, you know, I really appreciate that you've had the courage to tell your story. And I would strongly encourage it. You know, I again say this, I really hope people get in touch with me after and tell me sorts of setbacks they've had. I would love to hear about it.
Yeah, definitely. And sometimes you just need that one person that, you know, pushes you and actually encourages you to do it, because it's not something that you think you can do on your own. And, you know, it's, as you said, it's not, you don't think you have a story until someone actually, you know, inquires into you and learns more about you. Okay, so a couple more questions. How do you think Brexit in the UK will impact diversity and inclusion? Will it make the UK more inward looking rather than global?
UK is quite diverse anyway, and I think Brexit may impact it. It may so because it will be harder to come and work in the UK. But overall, I think the UK will try to retain its diversity. We're known to have different types of people in the UK. I don't think it will impact as badly. And I think the government will do everything they can to try and ensure that diversity is still represented. You know, there's a very diverse background in the UK, so I'm hoping that's the case. I can't exactly comment on how it's going to be, but I think from what I'm seeing in terms of the legal profession and how they're trying to make it more accessible, definitely it will remain diverse. I mean, I can see that happening.
Okay, another question. How do you manage the emotional pressures and challenges when working on difficult cases?
That's a very good question, because it happens to me every day. I'm at court and I'm watching a murder or a rape case or human trafficking or something very tough. You know, I sort of come home and I try to switch off. I try to talk to friends and family, you know, and it's okay to take a break. It's okay to read a book. It's okay to watch Netflix. This is the sorts of things I do, because for me, you know, watching a comedy just helps me remind me that I am a normal person. Yes, I'm watching cases that are very difficult. I'm involved in difficult cases, but I still have to look after my mental health, and mental health is very important. You know, if I sit here in bed every night and start thinking about every case I'm dealing with, I think I would not be able to go back to work the next day. Mentally, it's draining, but talk about it. I talk about a lot of feelings, and I try to make sure that everybody knows what I'm feeling. Like, I talk to my parents, I'm like, oh, I had such a difficult case today. It was so tough. You know, I'm feeling very tired. I'm feeling very stressed. And then we have a conversation about something else to try and, you know, take the mind of it. It's not easy, but, you know, you have to distract yourself to look after your mental health.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, you burn out. I mean, if you don't take that time out, you need to definitely take that time out and release in some way. How do you feel about working for someone younger than you or who has less work experience?
I don't think that's a problem to me. I think everybody has different experiences, and where I know barristers who are much younger than me, and they prosecute and defend cases, and I'm sort of helping them. I don't think it has a huge impact on me. I think it's quite nice. We can share experiences. It's not a problem for me at all.
Okay. And another question from the brothers in the UK. Thank you for your inspiring story. Your career has provided you a purpose. Purpose is such a powerful motivator. What advice would you give to people to find their purpose to share with the world?
So my purpose came from my background. I never knew my background was my strength until I was in bar school. And I would say, to find your purpose, you need to go out there and go and try different experiences, you know, really push yourself. Don't be scared to try new things. Don't be scared of new experiences. You know, when you start something new, it's always going to be great because you're learning so many different things. And go and do challenging things. Don't stop at where you're at. Go and try, you know, a new hobby, a new profession. I know people who join the profession very late. Finding your purpose comes from within, and only you know how to do that. But you will know this if you go and try different things. You need to go and experience life. And for me, it was that. This is an ongoing journey. I'm not a practicing barrister in the UK yet, but I'm still working towards it. And I think my purpose will never be found until I don't continue exploring. I'm at the first stage of my career. And for me, it's just about continuing exploring different areas and really finding what makes me happy, what makes me passionate. And the law I knew I was passionate about it, but I'm still exploring. Every day is a new challenge for me. So go and try new things and don't be scared to do it.
Yeah, and there's a lesson in every experience, and I think you know, the fact that you've tried so much has told you what you do like and you don't like as well, and that's really helped you to navigate through to your career right now. So that is the end of the hour. So unfortunately, we will have to wrap it up there. If you do have any questions, you know, can they get in contact with you? On
You can
LinkedIn?
get in contact on LinkedIn. I'm on Insta. I'm on Twitter. I'm on all the social media platforms. And please don't feel scared. I mean, I would be so happy if you guys all contact me with your stories, with any questions, with any comments, with any, also any feedback, because this is a learning curve for me, and I haven't done a webinar in a very long time, but this is something I would really like as well. So thank you all for joining me, and I hope you liked my story, and I hope that it's encouraged you as well to go and pursue new challenges. So please come and speak to me. I'm not scared of coming.
Yeah, and thank you so much for sharing your story and for being with us. We're very, very grateful to have your time and for you to talk to us this evening here and morning there about what is a very, very important and necessary issue. And so with that said, that wraps up the webinar. Again, if you want to learn more about YSBN and the work that we do, definitely check us out on social media, and you can, and we'll update when our next webinar is there. But until then, thank you so much for joining all around the world. And we hope you have taken away something valuable from this conversation, and we look forward to seeing you at the next webinar. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.